All right. Now, we use the Dred Scott. I think the Dred Scott, it is a landmark court case, and I believe it's one of the most important court cases to what we do. But I've been thinking about this court case because the court case, if you go down, this is on Wikipedia, when you go down and you're looking at this, this little section tells you all about the case, case history, holding. When you go all the way down, if you go to the bottom and there's no red, then that means that the court case was never overruled or superseded. Now, normally, when a case, it gets overruled, and that means everything that was a part of the judgment, the previous judgment, is null and void, and is no longer law. But in the Dred Scott case, it didn't get overruled. It got something different. It got superseded. Okay. Now, when a court case gets superseded, that means that it's still something good within the old holding, but maybe one thing or two things within that holding changed. And so because of that change, it gets superseded by something else. But it doesn't necessarily mean that everything that was a part of the old holding is false. So Dred Scott got superseded by the constitutional amendments of the 13th, 14th, and 15th, and the Civil Rights Act of 1866. This is what superseded the Dred Scott. Now, when I went to the African American History Museum, there was a young lady, law student, who was given a tour. Now, I just went in there and I just added myself to the tour, because that's what I do. I just added myself, and I got the ear hustling, and she got to talking about the Dred Scott. And she said, Dred Scott, this and that, but the Dred Scott was overruled. And I raised my hand, and I was like, did it get overruled? And she was like, the Dred Scott got overruled. And I was like, oh, okay, woo, real quick, snappy, like don't even go there. Everybody be coming here talking about the Dred Scott, this, that, and the other. That joint is null and void. So I know that when the book comes out and as this information starts to spread, I'm going to have to defend myself using the Dred Scott. If I got to defend myself using this case, you're going to have to defend yourself too. If some lawyer come by like, oh, the Dred Scott was overruled, the number one thing you're going to say is, well, first of all, sir, the Dred Scott was not overruled, it was superseded. And I'm going to explain to you why it was superseded. What part of the holding changed? All right, now. The first thing it says, the judgment was reversed and the suit dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. So the very first thing that I need y'all to understand about the Dred Scott case is that the judgment was reversed and the suit was dismissed for lack of jurisdiction, meaning that the Supreme Court and the federal government does not have the jurisdiction to decide a case brought to them by an African American, a black or non-white. That's the first thing you must understand. This case was reversed and dismissed because they don't have the power to decide upon people that are not their citizens, that are outside of their jurisdiction. That's number one. It says, let me start with number 3. Due process clause of the Fifth Amendment prohibits the federal government from freeing slaves brought into federal territories. Because of the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment, the federal government cannot free slaves in their territory. Now watch this. The Emancipation Proclamation supposedly freed the slaves of the South. But we understand that The South was in succession, meaning that President Lincoln wasn't their president anymore. He didn't have jurisdiction over them because they left the United States. They succeeded. So what power of law does the Emancipation Proclamation have to the South, who are no longer part of the Union? So we know that the Emancipation Proclamation didn't free nobody. The federal government, and that was a federal act of Emancipation Proclamation, was really a con at law that has no force of law, because it was trying to control people who were not a part of the nation anymore. That's like, you know, President Lincoln saying, Mexico, I emancipate the Mexican slaves. Damn, Mexico ain't a part of the United States of America. You can't do nothing with us over here. We not a part of you. So this country, federal government, has never freed slaves in its territory. Now let's go to number 2. The property clause is only applicable to lands possessed at the time of ratification, 1787. As such, Congress cannot ban slavery in the territories. The Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. Okay. The 13th, so some lawyer would say, well, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. So that was Congress creating an amendment to free the slaves. Well, or to ban slavery. Well, the 13th Amendment clearly say that it abolished slavery except for punishment of a crime. And so Congress did not ban slavery, it changed the rules. So the property clause still prohibits Congress from banning slavery. And there's no law on the books to this day, this is 2019, that Congress has passed that bans slavery. The 13th Amendment is not it. So right now, here we have the 3 and 2 of the Dred Scott. That is still law today. Congress never banned slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation was a con. It did, and so the federal government never freed slaves either in their territories. Now, just as a side note, in Washington, D.C., President Lincoln did free the slaves in Washington, D.C., and he had to pay emancipation to D.C. residents who lost slaves. I think it was $300 a slave, because he broke the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment. And it's called reparations. He had to pay the people in D.C. for breaking this reparations. And so when you have political and civil rights and the government breaks those rights, the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment, they have to pay reparations to the people when they break their own law. And so the President Lincoln did free some slaves, but he didn't have the right to do so. And because he did it without the right, he had to pay reparations to the people who, remember now, he paid reparations to slave owners because he made their property illegal, which he was not supposed to do. And then that takes us to number 1. So the first 2 are still law of this land. But that takes us to number 1. And this is the reason why Dred Scott was superseded, not even overruled. Because it's only one of these holdings, one piece of these holdings, and I'm going to show you, that changed, and that what made this court case superseded. It says a person of African descent cannot be, nor were ever intended to be, citizens under the United States Constitution. Plaintiff is without standing to file suit. Now, the 14th Amendment is an amendment to the Constitution. Now, when the 14th Amendment passed, the thing that changed was the intentions of the country. So watch this. It says a person of African descent cannot be, nor were ever intended to be. But when the 14th Amendment was passed, it didn't make you a citizen. It just offered you citizenship. Before the 14th Amendment, or which also did the same thing. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was the very first, 2 years before the 14th Amendment, was the very first act that offered citizenship to blacks. Before, there was no pathway to citizenship for blacks. And so he was right when he said it was never intended for you to be. But when the 14th Amendment came out and it offered you citizenship, the intentions of the Constitution changed, because now there's a pathway to citizenship for blacks and African Americans where there wasn't before. The intentions of the country changed. And so Dred Scott got superseded because of one thing, and that's the intentions of the country. And when it says, or were never intended, now that's not true anymore. The only part of the holding of Dred Scott that creates a situation where it needed to be superseded was the intent changed. And that's the only reason why this got superseded. So when people tell you, oh yeah, it got overruled, the first thing you correct them is that, well, it didn't get overruled, it got superseded. And do you understand why it got superseded? See, it's just a catchphrase, just like blacks ain't got no standard in law. It don't mean nothing until you really understand the whole pie. Why? The why. Because we go a step further and a step further. The why in Dred Scott, and the reason why Dred Scott was superseded and not overturned, because one little part of the holding changed. And it was because at the time there was no pathway for citizenship for non-whites, especially people of African descent. It was no intention in the U.S. Constitution for them ever to be citizens. And when the 14th Amendment passed, and 2 years before that, when the Civil Rights Act of 1866 passed, and believe me, that thing was vetoed. I think it got vetoed twice. But it was the first time where a pathway to citizenship, a offer was put out. And because they offered, they had the intentions of the U.S. Constitution changed, and that made this holding superseded, but not overruled. Everything else a part of this is the same. Just the country's intentions changed, and that's what made this superseded. So does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I'm just making sure. That's
How about everybody else? I'm tracking.
all right. We tracking. I just want to put y'all in a position where you can defend this information. And I know for certain that people are going to try you when it comes to you using the Dred Scott. But when you know the Dred Scott better than they do, when you surpass the public education system's approach to teaching you a certain part of it, when you surpass that, and now it's not just catchphrases, oh, that joint was overruled, this, that, and the other. And then you can say, nah, come on, let's have a conversation about that. Do you understand why? Right? You smart enough to tell me that it was overruled. Well, that would tell me why. Because I can tell you why.
Hey, Jelani.
I'm listening.
That definitely adds a whole nother spin to the education system.
Oh.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, they teaching this in school. Now, if we're educating our kids, our youth, about how they're being miseducated, they can then challenge that in the place where they're sending that miseducation.
Okay. This information, thank you for that. And I'm going to piggyback on what you just said. This information exposes something about our country. All right. And what I'm going to type in here, education, right, and propaganda. Okay. See, what we need to understand is the country's education system, right, is also what I like to call state-sponsored propaganda. Okay, and that's where you're leaning towards right now. Okay. the federal education system, I think the education system in this country really kicked off, and it was almost like a federal requirement that kids had to go to public education. Happened in 1870. This is right after the Reconstruction Amendments, right? And so I really believe that the education system was put in place to hide something, and it was put in place to hide how to be a citizen here. See, the Dred Scott also, and Dred Scott had a couple. You know, they had, you know, I don't know how many. I think it was. You had a lot of judges give opinions. The most important opinion was Justice Daniels. And when we read Justice Daniels, that's the one, you know, like Taney is the popular one in the Dred Scott. But Daniels is the one that really dropped some jewels. Daniels say in Rome, the Caesars scrupulously guarded citizenship. And the way that they did it there, black, white, was free man versus freed man. See, we got this white, black situation going on here. And the whole purpose of these dualities is that they're trying to hide citizenship within this. You know, you might do the same thing. You might be born in the same place, culturally speak the same language, both love Jesus, both love, you know, fried chicken and mashed potato. Like, you culturally are the same, yet it's this push for the country to separate you, to convince you that you different, that you totally different, even though you totally the same. You just got different skin colors. And so the game is to hide citizenship. Now, what perfect way to do so than through the education system? If I have an education system, then that means I control the right answers. By that power of being able to control the right answers and understanding that I have, and this is like federal mandate that you got to send your kids to school. I have your kids from preschool to 18, the biggest part of their development. I got them at the most crucial time, and I get to inundate them with all the information that I need them to know in order for my constructed society to work a certain way. So the part about education that you mentioned is so key. It's because in order for this country to work the way it does, I don't have to just lie to the black people. I gotta lie to everybody for the benefit of the citizens. So just like, and I was thinking about this the other day. I don't have kids, but I know parents sometimes can lie to their kids for their best interests. Okay, and I think the education system is a lie, a con. And even if I gotta lie to my white people, because they are part of the public education system too, I'm doing it for the benefit of whites. So even if I gotta lie to them too, I'm doing it for their benefit. And so everybody gotta be a part of the lie. And in order to lie to everybody at the same time, we call this state-sponsored propaganda, and we're going to dwindle this down to education system. We control the right answers. We control what you know. We control how you approach the world and what you do in it. So that's a very key point that you make. And yes, when this book comes out, this is going to be an expose on the black identity, but also an expose on how this country works. The factors that create the racial climate in this country are lawful government actors. All the way down to our education system. And so, yes, this country needs to be re-educated, and this information is going to put pressure on all the systems of government that are acting in coordinates in a way to create this racist society. So yes, you're exactly right. This is big a big expose on what they're teaching us to in order for this constructive society to continue in the way that it's working.
Excuse me, Jelani, would you say that the participants are conscious of the outcome? They're all well aware of the harm it's doing?
When you say okay, so because everybody is being lied to, right? Here we are in this situation where we can see that racism and white supremacy is having adverse effects on our society, but we don't know what to do about it because we think we're born it. I think that if you wanted to put a percentage on people who actually see what's going on, who actually understand what I'm teaching you, right, I would say the percentage is probably less than 5. Because in order for it to work and as masterfully as it is, everybody has to be conned. If white people in any great number knew what was really going on, they tell you, and racism would have been over 100 years ago. But because it's not, that means that they have to be conned too.
Hey, Jalan.
Yes.
It's no ride.
Talk to
Hey,
me.
I have a quick question. The information or the value of the information is there, but it's not interpreted the way that you're saying. Because if it was really laid out the way that you're, are being taught, the way that it's really meaning, but just like with us, we have to go on the way that we move around.
Narai, I'm losing you a little bit. You were breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I want you to repeat what you said, man. So go ahead.
So the way that is being interpreted or worded is being misinterpreted and not shown intent. And just like you're saying, is a con, because if you break it down to really what it's saying, it will reveal so much truth that people start changing.
The truth sound better. Yeah, I can hear you. The truth sound better than the lie to me. When I started to understand, one, I got to read stuff for myself. All right, I have been in all type of different organizations under the leadership of people and taking their interpretations of things as fact, right? And then when I said, you know what, all of these different situations and all of this leadership ain't leading me nowhere. And I'm getting older, and I want in my lifetime, okay, a part of this is selfishness, sheer selfishness, that I want in my lifetime to experience the freedom and the full citizenship that that is my birthright. I was like, I gotta read this stuff on my own. I ain't going under nobody's leadership. I can read. I got a college education. I learned how to learn. So I'm gonna apply the information, that I learned how to learn to reading this stuff myself, and then I'm gonna read it all. Okay, I'm not going under no curriculum. So what you talking about is curriculum based. Somebody got the right answers, and so to get this badge, you got to learn it this certain way and understand it this way and regurgitate it in this way for me to give you this special badge. And what happens now, if that's the way it goes, is now the more highly educated you are, the more likely that you become a tool of the system. But our approach is so much different. Our approach say, I'm going to read it all. I know what's going on, right? I can see the picture. Now let's fill in the holes. This is Brian versus Walton. I do not refer to these restrictions. Hold on, let me start here. The great principle. So this one I say, everything in this country's system, government-wise, law, and everything else, is being done to help the constructed society have certain outcomes. Okay, I'm going back to the court case. See, because this not me talking either. Every time I say something, I want to go to the law or something, so I separate myself from it. So it's not Jelani said. Okay, y'all ain't learning this in no way that you gotta mention me when you educating somebody. The great principle of self-preservation demands on the part of the white population, right? Unceasing vigilance and firmness, as well as uniform kindness, justice, and humanity. Every which way we have to, in this society, whether it's through unceasing vigilance and firmness or uniform kindness, justice, and humanity, however we got to play this con, we got to use everything must be interdicted, which is calculated to render the slave, right? Because you in a condition of slavery, even when you are free black, right? Whether you a slave or free black or non-white, you're still in a condition of slavery. To render the slave discontented with his condition, or which would tend to increase his capacity for mischief, right? We have constructed this in a way that all of the tools of government, housing, education, law, we're trying to produce a product here, okay? And the product that we are producing is an exploitable product that creates supremacy for the white population. We have to do this in order to create supremacy for the citizens. This is business. And at this time, there was no pathway. But we put a pathway in, but we ain't going to tell you how to go down that road. Why? Because it is important. The great principle of self-preservation demands on a part of the white population. If we want to live off the sweat and brow of somebody else, we got to use this government and all of its tools to crank out this product, right? See, I live in Washington, D.C. I can go to the South Side and I can see the product, right? The product is scary. The product don't have no care about themselves or yourself or life or anything. They have been pushed into a position that they are discontented with their condition. They got to increase capacity for mischief. And it's not because they weren't born to be this, but their identity was chosen for them. An identity that was constructed, and that they can use all the tools of government to crank out this product. And because we choose a certain identity for our kids, we give them away to the country for them to exploit. See, when we start to understand that this race is chosen at birth using the Social Security, see, we are in the position where we're taking our citizenship as adults, right? But see, this message got to be sent in another way too, that all of these new moms won't ever give their kids to the system to be exploited. They actually have a choice to not do that. And that's, we are at one position now, but as we expand this, and I'm so glad that there's so many women are part of this, because you guys are going to be the catalyst to change when y'all start talking to y'all sisters and you say, everybody want to talk about how powerful the black woman is, okay? I'm showing you, right, that your power, your sisterhood coming together, and you reaching out to your sisters, if there is some such thing as sisterhood, this is what the message need to be. We create black people here. We create the exploited class. We give our babies to the system to be exploited. If we wanted to change, look, if we wanted to change racism in America, we don't even need the black man. We don't even need his permission. If we wanted to change it, all we would have to do is every time we had a baby, we check white for them as soon at the beginning. And this is something that every sister passes on to every other sister, to where this is a woman's movement, right? Y'all can change racism without us. If y'all said I ain't giving no black man nothing until he get down to that Social Security office and change his way, I don't do no black men. How many black guys would be at the Social Security office tomorrow? And it's Sunday, and they'll still be down there because they like this. If my woman say no until until I'm a white man, well, I'm gonna get white. That's just the power that y'all have. Somebody say something, man. I don't. Y'all sleep.
Hey, hey,
Somebody say.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's Nariah again. Hey, just the difference in those words, what you were mentioning about with the Dred Scott between supersede or
Overruled. Mm-hmm.
overruled, and I know a lot of times it may be tried to use interchangeably, like it's meaning the same thing, but that's the whole reason it's two different words.
Exactly, Nariah. And what I did was, I was like, man, let me try to find some other Supreme Court cases that was superseded and not overruled. I couldn't even find another one. I was like, dang, they don't use this supersede that often. This, like, they use overruled all the time. But this supersede, it's a little different. If it's the same, then there's no need for both words. So I agree with you, Nariah. That's just common sense. And that's how it started for me, and how I kept going down that path and kept digging and digging and digging, and it was like, oh, okay, I get it. This is a little softer joint because something did happen that changed one little piece. So we can't like totally overrule. There's so much in here that's still true, but because that one little piece changed, we gotta throw that red bar down there, and we gotta say, hey, superseded. We lose a light version of overruled. It's just slick. It's word. This is sorcery. See, and this the thing. A lot of people feel like until you got to the position where you can understand all of these small intricacies, you don't deserve citizenship anyway. Until you understand how the law works in the country that you are in, then you don't deserve citizenship. Some people looking at it like that.
I hear you.
So so to keep ignorance going serves that point.
That's right. When you know what's valuable, then you know what they gotta lie to you about. See, this is the thing. Once we figured out that citizenship and race was connected, then we know they gotta be the trick bag gotta be surrounded all the time about lying to us about race and citizenship. And all this information is exposing all of these elaborate lies they try to hide. But again, Rome said that the Caesars scrupulously guarded Roman citizenship. Free man versus freed man. This game has been played in ancient times. And this the thing, we be so pompous and proud and think that we've come so far from ancient societies, they'll never do that to us. Whole time we in the same trick bag. And then they teaching you history. So then now you can't even figure your way out the paper bag because they never teach you the way to get out. Most of the people that I come to with this, that are highly educated, lawyers and so on and so forth, they look at me like I'm crazy. How you going? You ain't been to law school, this, that, the other. And I'm like, that's the problem. Is that you went to law school. And because you did, right? And the highlier educated you are in this system, the more of a tool you are to continue the status quo. Y'all don't want to talk to me, man. Thank you, Naraya. I can always count on Naraya.
I'm sorry, I'm just digesting, man. That's all.
Digest, my brother.
I'm one of the people when they eat don't talk to me.
Hmm. Digest,
That's
my
a
brother.
process.
Look, we in the question and answer part because we got 40 minutes. I'm glad you guys joined me this Saturday. I just want to thank y'all for being here. Eric the barber couldn't make it today, but he out of town, so I had to do this one on my own. But I appreciate you guys coming out. And you know, this the question and answer part of anything you've been thinking about over the week or anything from what we discussed today. This the time to ask any questions or comments.
I just know I need to study.
Read on your own. One thing I'll do is I'll point you in the right place. And then again, I do this in a way where you do not have to mention me. And it's going to be so much more powerful. We have been taught that we need leaders over us and that we always got to have some leader that we have to mention when we addressing certain things. We don't, nah. You don't need no leader. You the leader. We building leaders on these webinars. And I just want to make sure that y'all, everything can be, I give y'all all the links is on the education page. These videos, I like the way that you approach it, Lori, because that's the way I am. I read a book 3-4 times. You know, if I'm looking at a video of somebody, I look at it 4, 5, 6 times. I want to know every little way in which they're doing what they're doing. And so I can break it down and I can add to it or I can dismiss it. I want y'all to study me in that way. If you feel that you see something that you can call out. See, I would have wanted one of y'all to be like, well, the Brown Dred Scott was overruled. So I could have been like, oh, okay. So I want y'all to study me too. I want y'all to press me out. If you think there's any inconsistencies on what you hear from me, because you are doing your own studying, one of these days I'm gonna straight up lie to y'all. I'm gonna see if one of y'all catch me. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just straight up wail to y'all, and then I'm gonna see if somebody be like, "Wait a minute, where is that at? Where's your source? I want to know where you got that from." I ain't going for that. One of these days, I might not do it next week, but I'm gonna straight up lie. I'm gonna wail to y'all, the biggest wail I can come up with, and I want one of y'all to call me out. We might have to give you an extra sushi or something. Oh man.
Hey, when you do get the book together, I know we're gonna have all the resource, and the pointers to where it actually is, so everyone can validate it, right?
Yeah, we that's the biggest part of this. You know, I do this in a way that I like to separate myself from the information so y'all can go right to the law, right to exactly where the answer is, and now it becomes your power. That is what this is all about. When you talking to somebody, it ain't about, yeah, and Jelani said this. Y'all gonna be like Brian versus Walton. I go right to the court case. I can show you the paragraph. It's exactly the way he would do it. You know, that is why I do this in this way. I use Wikipedia on everything. Everybody know how to get the Wikipedia. And this the thing about education. I ain't using nothing different that the curriculum don't use. I'm just giving you the truth. I don't have no state propaganda, right? It's to keep a constructed society operating in a certain way. That's motive. I don't have no motive. My motive is the truth. Nothing but the truth. That's it. And so that's the way I reason why I teach y'all. And this is the reason why I'm going to do things in a way that I want to protect you guys from people trying to come at you a certain way. And that's the reason for why we talked about Dred Scott the way we did today. Because I need you guys to understand it better than what the curriculum give it. And then when you go into any situation, understanding that most of this stuff, I know what the curriculum teach. I got a college education. I done been through the highly trained propaganda approach too. I know what they get. That's why when I come at them with this different stuff, it's because it's superior to what they're teaching you. I can get, look, you're not going to trip me up by no overrule or superseded. Because I didn't get my information from the curriculum. We just read the whole thing. Look, the best way I can explain to you is read the whole thing. That's education. Read the whole thing. You want to understand something, read the whole thing. Not no cliff notes and not no curriculum-based education. Well, they get to control the right answers for you. Somebody else say something. We got 30 minutes. Oh, we got Lisa on the line. Morning, Lisa. Ken Shard on the line. Yeah. All right, y'all. I'm going to end this meeting early. Y'all don't want to talk to me.
That's a lot to absorb.
I did drop something on y'all today. I did. I dropped something heavy on y'all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this video. I'll probably do 2 or 3 parts to this. I'll get it all edited up. And then during the week, y'all can just go back to this video and take more from it. Take as much as you can from it. And then I'm sure, you know, you got to sit with it a little bit too. Let me do one more thing before I let y'all go. I mentioned Frederick Douglass in here. Now, I told you that the emancipation was a con, that it had no force of law, right? Let's hear what Frederick Douglass got to say. He said, I admit that the Negro, especially the plantation Negro, the tiller of the soil, has made little progress from barbarism to civilization, and that he is in a deplorable condition since emancipation. Listen, that he is worse off in many respects than he was as a slave. How many people would say that people were worse off in as emancipated than they were as a slave? Well, this is Frederick Douglass. Let's go to Brown versus Walton again. In no part of this country, whether north, south, east, or west, does the free Negro stand erect and on a platform of equality with the white man. He does and must necessarily feel this degradation. To him, there is little prospect but a life of poverty and depression, of ignorance and decay. He lives amongst us without motive, without hope. His fancied freedom is all a delusion. And this is the most important part. All practical men must admit that the slave who receives care, the care and protection of a tolerable master, is superior in comfort than the free Negro. And Brian Walton, he says that emancipated Negro is in a worse condition. And then our boy Frederick say the same thing. I am compelled to admit, but I contend that the fault is not his, but that of his heartless accusers. He is a victim of a cunningly devised swindle. Remember how we keep talking about this whole race thing is a con game. Frederick Douglass in 1888 was like, wait a minute, something is up. First this new identity. They trashing it all across the seas through their press and through every spoken word, north, south, even in Europe. They trashing this identity, and it's affecting how the world is going to approach you. It's affecting the rules of engagement for you, right? And then at home, it's some kind of, this is a swindle. This is a cunningly devised, right? We say that this is a constructed society. Well, the victim is cunningly devised. This is a cunningly devised swindle. One which paralyzes his energies, suppresses his ambition, and blasts all his hopes. And though he is nominally free, he is actually a slave. This 1888, Brown versus Walton. Don't this sound like the same? It's like two people saying the same thing. He does not and must necessarily feel this degradation. To him, it's little but prospect, but a life of poverty, depression, of ignorance and decay. This is in 1853. This is in 1888. So look, in 1853, because this has been done before, this is historic. I can predict what's going to happen to him because I already know it's happened before. We know what's going to happen when we construct society in this way. This is in 1853. By 1888, everything is playing out just exactly how he said. Why? Not because he got a crystal ball. It's because when you construct something to have a certain outcome, to produce a certain product, the product is expected. This is Frederick Douglass, I here now denounce his so-called emancipation as a stupendous fraud, a fraud upon him, a fraud upon the world. See, when you start to talk about this new identity and the ways in which they're doing it, and you're affecting the way people are approaching these people now, right? You not just defrauded them, but you defrauded the world too. It was not meant so. It was not so meant by Abraham Lincoln. It was not so meant by the Republican. Well, that's, he just letting you know this emancipation was a complete fraud. And that's the way we teach it. And then when I can go to 1853 and then bounce to 1888, and 1853 he's predicting that this is going to happen, and then 1888 a very, very brilliant man is saying this is what the thing is. That's how a constructed society. I know what product I want at the beginning, and I'm going to construct all the systems to produce this outcome. And that's exactly what the black in America is a product. All right.
Dr. Lonnie, I have a question. What do you think about putting this in a condensed form for CD presentation to this while they're driving along?
What I want to do is we're going to keep doing these webinars. At some point, I'm going to run out of information. But what happens is we got all of these recordings. So now I can get some professional to go in and edit all of these recordings. Now what's going to happen is I have a YouTube page where I do some small editing, and y'all really get the majority of this. And I'll always have that available to you. But, when we go to the next level, I'll have somebody edit this. And all of the great points that I made in all of those previous ones and the ones in the future are going to be compiled into one little thing. It might be 1-2 hour long, of little cuts and excerpts and so on and so forth that, will end up being the complete package of all the information. So we do plan on, editing and putting this all into one file. That's down the road. But, because you guys are a part of this, I'm always going to make the entire thing really available to you guys. Every time I finish one, it'll be, when you guys see a video, you subscribe. When you subscribe, every time I upload a video, then it'll be there. And some of the ones that you've already seen, they got part 2s to them and part 3s. And so I'm going to be uploading those, and then I'll be uploading the ones that I did today.
Find when I'm driving, I'd rather listen to reinforce my understanding. That's time that's well used.
Yeah, and podcasts are a really popular thing, right? And podcasts. I'm not the biggest pro of them, but I just know that they're big. That, you got audiobooks and you got podcasts that people are, like you say, in a driving situation, and they can just sit down, and instead of listening to music, they could be listening to something that can have them thinking and progressing, their approach to the world and life and race and all that. So even a podcast is something that's being offered that I think we think about doing. But as far as these recorded things, we're going to get them edited up, and we're going to create something from this. Understand that something will be created, and a lot of the things that haven't been uploaded yet is because I want to talk to people. Lori, you're one of them that you had some excellent questions, and before I put that on YouTube, I'm going to direct DM you, and have you look at it first, and make sure that everything is okay before we put it out there.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Good morning. Good morning. Y'all still
It's a
sleep.
lot of good stuff
That
to
was a
chew
good
on.
morning.
Yeah, man, I dropped some heavy stuff on y'all today. I hope y'all can handle it. But again, I'm gonna make sure y'all get the video from this so you can go back to this. This is going to be a good one to listen to over and over again. I need y'all to perfect the Dred Scott because it is a great tool for this information. And I cannot have people coming at y'all some way talking about it's overruled, this, that, and the other, and they don't even halfway know what they talking about. Okay, y'all gotta know it better than them. We know this this education system we know that it's state propaganda. We know that they need the people to understand things a certain way for it to work this way. And so we know that there is a greater truth than what they're telling us through our education system. And because we read everything, I read everything, the whole page, over and over again. And y'all gonna benefit from that because I'm gonna tell you exactly where it's at. I'm gonna cheat, give y'all the cliff notes so y'all know exactly what the information is. But that's how we gonna do this. And the way I do this, I'm gonna separate myself from this information. It ain't gonna be because Jelani said. Y'all gonna have the power to be like, nah, I can read, I can understand, I can go right to the, what did that say? What did it say right here? What about this? Yeah. Y'all gonna be powerful. Y'all gonna be a blower to deal with. They're gonna be like, lawyers gonna hate dealing with y'all because they're gonna be like, I'm supposed to be smarter than you. I got a big, bright education badge that say, and all that. All it means is that you a bigger tool for the status quo of anybody else. That's all it means. We're gonna expose everybody, and this information is an expose on the entire country. I need y'all to understand that, and the way all the systems of government work is to create and to preserve white privilege, and you guys are taking it by going and checking white. All right, somebody else. That's it. What'd you say, Lori?
I don't want to start a new conversation since this one is ending, but maybe for next we continue what I'm about to say at another time. I'm just thinking from what you just said there, the white group becoming the minority, and when we check white, does that change that statistic for them?
Okay, watch this. A minority. One thing that I learned about the word minority. Ooh. We might got enough time for me to do it. Let's see.
Yeah, go ahead.
Minority. I'm going right into it. Minority. And I'm going to do everything else in this accent as if I was British. My British accent, okay? All right, listen up. When you turn white, you gotta talk like this, okay? You gotta talk like this. No more. Okay, here we go. Come on, load up. Good question, Lori. Lori, the excellent question asker. I got something for you, Lori. I'm prepared for you, Lori. I gotta be prepared for you. Come on. Come on, computer. You wanna act up? Come on. Okay, here we go. Minority. All right, minority are culturally, ethnically, get out of here. Hold up. My computer is acting up here. Let's see. Somebody know what we doing. They trying to attack my computer. They don't want me to tell you the truth. Oh, come on. Oh, here we go. All right. Minority. A culturally, ethnically, or racially distinct group that coexists with but is subordinate to a more dominant group. This is minority. As the term is used in social sciences, this subordinacy is the chief defining characteristic of a minority group. Now look, listen. The chief defining characteristic of a minority group is the subordinacy. Okay? As such, minority status does not necessarily correlate to population, meaning that minority status is not if my numbers are smaller than somebody else's numbers, population. No, it says that the chief defining characteristics is the subordinacy. Now, I went to South Africa. So watch this. In some cases, one or more so-called minority groups may have population many times the size of the dominating group. Such was the case in South Africa under apartheid. Minority status is not about numbers. It's about subordinacy. Okay? I can't call myself a minority. Why? Because this is not about numbers. It's about subordinacy. And I ain't no subordinate. See, checking white is saying, I ain't no minority. Number one, culturally, you and whites are the same anyway. Ethnicity is a con, and so is race. And so subordinate is how you get to minority status. I don't think any of y'all want to be subordinate to anybody. And if you choose not to, that's what you're doing when you're choosing white. You're choosing to not be a minority. And so when you make that choice, a choice to not be a subordinate, it has nothing to do with numbers. You cannot be a minority anymore. But when you check black, you are choosing to be a minority. And you are choosing subordinacy. Okay? And so we need to understand the choice of black. And Lori, does that make any sense to you?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right. We can get that out the way right now. We ain't got to wait till next week. Lori, we ain't making you wait. You got the best questions in the bunch.
Hey, Jelani, this is Lisa Williams. I've gone to a few meetings lately where folks are talking about the census that's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And the census groups are already starting to go out to do pre-census work around race and ethnicity. How are we looking at that?
Lisa, we are constructing a book right now that we want to have done before the end of the year. Now, when people have to start choosing on that census is in April of next year. That's when the actual forms come out that you have to fill out. We want to get this information out there before April of next year. We want to have the book done and out there months before people have to actually start filling out their forms. We want to be able to have, we want to be on a book tour where we're going to morning shows talking about this. We want to get enough people to get a busload together and videotape a busload of dark-skinned people going down to the Social Security office and one after the other getting their white and coming out and getting a t-shirt that say I'm white now, bitches, or something like that. You know, like there's a lot of things that we're trying to do to spread this information. But our goal is to have an impact on the census in 2020. And so believe me, that is in our sights, Lisa, and we are planning to make a splash. And a part of that is educating you so you can help us get the message out there.